You start, okay? If we are about to start, but we wait first. Well, yeah, for we can start. Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
So, good morning, everybody. I'm Real. I'm responsible for the forest and no. I'm responsible for the forest and the sustainability of Companhia das Ilhas, and I like to welcome everybody. Welcome to Companhia das Ilhas and welcome to everyone. I will read because it's better for you and for me. So it's just a few words. We are in a space shaped by man, as you know, through agriculture, which found here the most productive soils in the country and built this coherent space for food production. One of the most efficient and sustainable that are found in Portugal. It is the result of almost 2 centuries of work of consolidation, defense, and improvement of the soil and drainage and irrigation conditions carried out by a group of farmers and by their association, among which the company Companhia das Ilhas, has a prominent place. It was thus possible to build an island with 140 square kilometers, where we are now, of course, which is not only a very productive area, but also an example of harmonization between agriculture and conservation. Included in about 50% in the nature network, being part of a nature reserve and a Ramsar zone. Farmers thus contribute to the maintenance and even improvement of the habitat and several species of birds, contributing to the quality of the tax history as a stopover for the migratory routes of the Eastern Atlantic. It can be seen, therefore, that the Godwit Flyway project is a logical consequence of this work, in which this contribution becomes even more tangible and conscious. Conscious for the company, for the other farmers of Lysidia, and through the actions to be implemented by the project for a other part of the community. We therefore thank the project partners, and especially the University of Aveiro, in the person of Dr. José Alves, for the challenge to participate, and we hope that this project will be truly decisive for improvement of the state of conservation of the European black-tailed godwit in an integrated perspective along with its migration routes. This is the only approach that can work on an ongoing basis in the case of migratory birds. Thank you all for being here, and I hope this journey will be very productive. I must say that the regional director of conservation of nature and forests that should be here, she could not be here. He tried, but it was not possible to arrive. So his excuses, and so we have now
a video.
Yes.
Thank you. Journey Crispin.
So now, Jeremy, Christine, are you ready? Can I put you on the stage? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, very well. Wait only a second to remove from stage this and these two to see you very well.
So, dear participants, I'm very happy to be here to present you the view of the European Commission. In Brussels, we also face a farmer demonstration. They were here yesterday in Brussels, and they got some requests that were answered. So I understand and I share the difficulty you have, but we also had in Brussels. I am the desk officer for the Bird Directive in the European Commission. It's a Nature Conservation Unit. And this is my pleasure to welcome the LIFE project Godwit Flyway. And I thank the project partner and specifically the University of Groningen for this project. I welcome that you invest in such an important species, a black-tailed godwit, which is a flagship species, indeed, of bird directive. LIFE has been supporting nature for 30 years with good results, and we really hope that you will contribute as well to a very good result, that you will make a difference, because the aim of LIFE is also that you catalyze and the best practice are expanded and also spread and integrated into other funds all along the flyway. So black-tailed godwit, yes, this is a flagship species of the bird directive, and we have engaged in the Commission on priority action, specifically on these birds. So we first have the bird directive, compliant with the bird directive. Black-tailed godwit is one migratory species, not in Annex 1, but SPA should be designated for that. But on the wider sense, habitat must be restored in compliance with ecological needs of the bird. This is Article 3. We have Article 4, it's about SPA and Natura 2000 legislation. We have Article 7, so it's a huntable species, so there should be a sustainable hunting about this species. Currently, there is an Iowa moratorium. So that's the first part, the bird directive. Then now we have the nature restoration law. That was a nature restoration agenda. There is a new element in this nature restoration law that we hope will be approved by the European Parliament by end of February. We have a need for restoration measure for habitat of bird species, also outside of Natura 2000. So that's a specific target on restoration on which we will work on. Nature restoration law will be prioritized on Natura 2000 and specifically SPA, but it also has to be implemented outside of SPA. So that's the general context. The Green Deal came and we had this element to take into account. What's important to say is that it's an huntable species. That's why we have included this species in the current task force on recovery of birds. So we group member states and stakeholders in Brussels, and we work on 33 huntable species with unsecured status. Black-tailed godwit is one of them. We already work on this task force for 1 year, and we want to contribute to the recovery of population of those birds. So it would be very good if you could link this LIFE project also with the work we do, because for black-tailed godwit, for example, even if we not work on sustainable hunting because of the moratorium, we'll still do assessment about hunting, but we'll also ask to have some action that could be defined about black-tailed godwit, about the habitat, but also pressure which are not related to habitat, such as predation. So we don't want to do a species action plan with 150 actions that we cannot monitor, but we'll define a focus set of 10 actions that we'll be able to monitor, and we'll make survey with the member state to monitor the implementation. This task force is supported by scientists, and we have here Carles Carboneras, who is supporting us in this work, so that's the scientific committee. And what we'll do at the end, this technical scientific committee will do recommendation about those species and will ask our expert group with member state and stakeholder to support and to agree with the recommendation. So that's the usual cycle, and so there will be one for the black-tailed godwit as well. So I would like to mention as well that we work further on to develop farmland tools. So I see that you have a beautiful farmland area. It's good that you work between nature and conservation. So we try to do it also at EU level, and we have a specific contract in the past to support farmland bird conservation. And we wanted with that to create agricultural measures that could be included in the CAP strategic plan and then implemented. And the black-tailed godwit was one of the flagship species in this work. And in the Commission, during the approval, we push for better integration of bird conservation measures in the CAP strategic plan. I would like also to mention that at the time we did a fitness check of the Nature Directive, it was in 2017, we developed a set of species action plan, and there was one for wet grassland habitat. However, as I say, species action plans are very difficult to monitor if you don't have action and animation about that, so that was very difficult. I look at your project and that's very positive that you don't limit yourself to EU. So we often have difficulty to work outside EU along the Flyway, and it's very good that you have this action specifically in Africa. I would like to mention at last some horizontal works that are relevant for the black-tailed godwit, but not specifically targeted as this. So you know that we have a protected area target. We aim to have 30% of area land covered by protected area measure, and this should also benefit migratory birds. We also work on the designation of sufficiency of natural frozen network, specifically at land, and we are currently working at migratory species, specifically the one that could not have been designated. So we are currently working on that. We also have horizontal action about implementing the measure, because it's not sufficient to have designation, it should also be implemented. We need to have conservation measure and objective, and we have horizontal action to push to have those measures implemented. And at last, we secure funding. So we have this live funding. You were successful in the application, and we are very happy that you start this work. But we don't act only on life. We also act on other fund and integration, specifically CAP strategic plan. So I wish you all a nice meeting. I will also follow it this morning, and I'm looking forward to see the results. It's very good that this project will contribute to implementation of the bird directive. And also I see that it's a good project that could fit directly into implementation of nature restoration law. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Now we will see a little video from the Christian Mayer from Nederstation. Sorry if it's not well pronounced. Let's do it. Thank you, Jeremy, again.
Dear Mr. Sousa, dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation and the organization of the kick-off event for the LIFE project Conservation of the Black-tailed Godwit along the Flyway in the picturesque Aljote in Portugal. Unfortunately, due to the scheduling reasons, I'm not able to be there in person. Nevertheless, I would like to seize this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the project LIFE Godwit Flyway and all its dedicated contributors. In an era defined by major global challenges and increasingly violent conflicts, where climate change looms as a profound threat alongside a biodiversity crisis, the imperative to protect species becomes synonymous with the safeguarding our climate. Lower Saxony stands as a beacon of the exemplary conservation efforts, particularly in the protection of meadowbirds. By nurturing wet meadows and boglands, we achieve a delicate balance preserving rare species in their natural habitats while making vital contributions to climate protection. Meadowbirds are global citizens. Black-tailed godwits, which breed here in Lower Saxony in the Dimmer region and at the Lower Alp grassland, migrate to Portuguese or Spanish staging areas at the Tagus River or in the Extremadura region. From there, the birds move to the wintering areas in West Africa, for example, the Gambia River or in Senegal. In all these countries, the wetlands are under threat, and with them, the habitats and livelihoods of meadowbirds and many other animals, plants, and humans. Lower Saxony has recognized that it is time to act. We recently implemented the Lower Saxony Way, a cooperative strategy that combines interests of land use and nature conservation. The already successful ongoing live IP grassbird habitats is the basis for comprehensive optimization of wet meadow habitats in Lower Saxony and in Friesland, the Netherlands. With the Live Godwit Flyway project, the state of Lower Saxony is also assuming its responsibility for meadowbird conservation as a coordinating beneficiary. The interconnectedness of breeding, resting, and wintering areas emphasizes the global nature of conservation efforts. Despite my absence today, I'm uplifted by the realization that international projects like the Godwit Flyway bring people together to tackle global challenges collaboratively. Migratory birds, such as the black-tailed godwit, serve as ambassadors connecting Lower Saxony to the rest of Europe and to West Africa. I extend my best wishes for the success and swift progress of the project, recognizing the urgency of our shared mission. Special thanks are due to the representatives of the EU Commission, who played a key role in selecting and supporting the project. I also want to extend my gratitude to the remarkable individuals and organizations involved in the project's realization. The experts from the University of Groningen, the Natur- und Umweltschutzvereinigung Dimmer, the Ministry of Environment in the Gambia, and our esteemed hosts in Portugal, Companhia das Lecerias and the University of Aveiro. Last but not least, I express my appreciation to the dedicated staff of the Live IP grassbird habitats at the Lower Saxony Water Management, Coastal and Nature Protection Agency for their unwavering support. Thank you and have a good conference.
Thank you too. Now we invite to the next part Nick Warmling to speak from the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality from Netherlands. Please join us in the studio to enter in the link that you have in the comments and to allow you to be seen for Thank you, Nick. That's it. Please. You can speak now, Nick. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, can you hear me? Thank
Yes, very well. Thank you.
you. Well, good morning, everyone. I can hear someone, yes. Great. I'm hearing my echo. Apologies. Let me try to fix this.
Maybe you need to close the other.
like this. I've muted my audio to prevent any echo, but I hope that you can still hear the mic. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, can proceed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'll just proceed. Well, I'm honored and delighted to be invited to this kickoff meeting, the Life Godwit Flyway project, an ambitious but much needed attempt to expand and intensify international conservation work for the black-tailed godwit. Though lots is already being done, declining population trends urge us to step up our game. And it's no easy challenge amidst the current poly crisis on biodiversity, climate change, and also pollution. But I hope that you feel, as I do, that there is no other way. So I'm happy to see this group of experts and officials and observers to come together to celebrate the kickoff of this project, and how fitting that we can do so on World Wetlands Day. And I've attempted to provide a nice scenery for you. I hope it doesn't interfere too much with the sound by having the Tagus estuary in the background. I would like to take a few minutes of your time to reflect on how the Netherlands views the importance of this project and how your project will link and contribute to the implementation of long-standing international conservation efforts. As introduced, my name is Nick Warmelink, and I am a policy officer on international species conservation for the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality, where I'm speaking to you in my capacity as Dutch national focal point to the African-Eurasian Migratory Waterbirds Agreement, or in short, AEWA. The Netherlands is deeply connected with the black-tailed godwit. Aside from being a subject of science, conservation and restoration, it is also a subject of history, culture, and even national pride. In 2015, it was chosen by the Dutch public to be our national bird. It has deserved its place, as this bird is an iconic flagship species for the typical Dutch wet meadow landscapes. As I am sure the godwit has deserved its place in your respective countries as well, as an emblem for wetlands and their conservation. For many years, the Netherlands has been deeply invested in working on the conservation of the species, at a national but also at an international scale. In 1995, together with many other countries, the Netherlands has been a partner in establishing AEWA. Due to its importance as a conservation framework for the Life Godwit project, I was asked to provide a brief introduction to the AEWA Treaty. AEWA is an intergovernmental treaty dedicated to the conservation of waterbirds and their habitats. The treaty has no less than 84 contracting parties and covers 255 species of waterbirds that depend on wetlands for at least a part of their annual cycle. AEWA brings together countries and the wider international conservation community in an effort to coordinate conservation and management of migratory species throughout their entire migratory range. And some of AEWA's great strengths are its science-based decision-making, its good cooperation across continents, and the involvement of passionate and motivated people like yourselves. AEWA was an international response to the need for a flyway perspective to the conservation of birds. We are therefore very happy to see another big project, your Life Godwit Flyway project, upholding this flyway approach, investing in the restoration and conservation in breeding grounds in Germany, stopover sites in Portugal, and wintering sites in the Gambia. You are upscaling rewetting attempts, experimenting with Godwit-proof ricefield management, and even aiming for a biosphere reserve with conservation of the species. Under this AEWA treaty, an international action plan for the black-tailed godwit is established. This plan determines priority actions to restore the species to a favorable conservation status. Attached to this action plan, there is an international working group consisting of government representatives and experts to jointly work on the implementation of this action plan by determining concrete measures. And this week, actually, a part of this international working group was convened in Lisbon, Portugal, for 3 days. Firstly, to exchange on the progress made in different countries. Secondly, to share the latest research findings. And thirdly, to update the working plans with new activities to further the conservation of the species. Many of you now here were also present at that meeting. It's been a very intensive but also very rewarding week, resulting in updated plans that will guide the conservation action of governments for the next 3 years. The Life Godwit project is Live Godwit Flyway project is an important means of implementing the priority action that are set in this action plan. Together with the Live IP Grassbirds Habitat project, initiatives from the AEWA Backtailed Godwit Working Group, this Godwit Flyway project will be a cornerstone to our international efforts for conserving the species. I would like to state that it's important for all those involved to explore how these international frameworks and projects relate to each other, to make sure that they are compatible to one another, so that we exchange on the lessons we learn while doing them, and that we seek synergies, seeing how the different initiatives can strengthen one another. I wish you all a happy World Wetland Day, a good kickoff meeting, but most of all, a fruitful collaboration in the years to come. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nick. It was a pleasure to hear you here. I hope you can join us in the rest of the program today, of the agenda. Now we will pass the words to Eric Belting to do the presentation. Do you prefer this, Nick, or you prefer something that you have free hands?
I just sit behind the laptop. Right?
No, you don't need it. You can be as you wish.
In the presentation, there are some animations, so it would be best if you there. Yeah, hello everybody. I'll try to give a brief overview about the project conservation of the black-tailed godwit on the Flyway, and to go over here and provide an overview of what that project is about. So, the black-tailed godwit you see here on the picture on the left. This species is an umbrella species, a flagship species for the grassland breeding birds like the lapwing, the redshank, curlew, common snipe, and the ruff. And besides that, we have in northwestern Europe 30 more species that are breeding in wet grassland. So this project, Godwit Flyway, it's of course Godwit, but the main aim is to conserve the complete community of grassland breeding birds, and especially the wader birds as we see here. When we are going to the black-tailed godwit, what are godwits? Godwits are ground breeding birds and precautionary birds. So that means they have their nest on the ground and they are staying for more than 2 months in the grass sod. So, and that's of course a very special situation for the birds and for the needs they cope with. So the chicks are feeding on insects in the grassland, and for a day they are taking up to 5,000 insects, and they need that to grow up and being able to have this intake rate. They of course have to move a lot. They have to move a lot, and the chicks, they're moving up to 5.6 kilometers in average per day to survive. And think about such a little bird, takes such a distance in the grassland. Therefore, of course, it's essential that there's a structure that food is available. So, to be able to walk around, they need a low and sparse vegetation. Otherwise, they won't have any chance to make the movements they need for feeding. And on the other side, they need high water tables. You see the long beak of the Godwit. They need this wetness for probing for the invertebrates they feed on. And for agriculture, it means they, of course, need a late mowing. So when they are starting to breed, staying for 2 months in the grassland for nesting and raising up the chick, it's of course important that there is no mowing at that time. And that's a big problem where in conventional grasslands, they just cannot cope with this system because the first cut nowadays usually is in the middle of the breeding season. So, on the other hand, in the pastures, they need a low grazing density because the usual grazing density that we have in the grasslands in Germany, the trampling factor is just too high, so that they are losing too many nests. We can sum it up. The Godwit needs what a farmer can't use, and that is a problem. That is a problem we have to cope with. So as a result, here you can see the population development of the black-tailed Godwit in Germany. So we have a decrease of the species of 70% within 30 years, and this decrease still is going on. When it comes to the other species, we saw on the slides, it's almost, so it's almost the same with the other species. And this development is almost the same everywhere in northwestern Europe. So when we are going to the Netherlands, you would see just more or less exactly the same figure as over here. So there's a really high need to react on that. And this decrease is due to the change in land use over the last decades. What happened over the last decades all over northwestern Europe, there's an increase of intensity in agriculture, increase in fertilizers and pesticides, and the drainage. So on this slide, what you see here, the changes in agriculture, the problem is not the mechanization. The problem is the decrease of the habitat quality, in fact, of the intensification of the agriculture. Over the last decades, what happened in the field is that flowering rich meadows, as you can see on the left, as we have had still up to the 1950s, all these are turned over into monotonous grasslands today. And when you take a look to that picture to the right, in this grassland systems, there's just not a way to survive for the chicks in those type of grassland. They never can have this reproduction rate what the birds need. But we do not have only these bad situations over the country. We have some really good examples. For example, at the Lake Rimmer, where we started already 30 years ago to buy the land, to recreate the grassland, to rewet it. And in that area, we already had in place several more live projects. So over there, it is the fourth live project dealing with that. And creating those types of grasslands makes a really big difference. So here you see the population development of the 5 species. Don't want to go into detail, but you see all of them are going upwards. So we have a really good increase when you take a look to the red shank on the left above. So it took over 20 years until the bird that had disappeared came back, but over the last year they really made it. There's a really strong increase as we want to have it. And take a look to the other species. It's always their positive development. And in the middle, the black-tailed Godwit, our flagship species. So it was down to only 50 breeding pairs 20 years ago. But since that time, the bird increased of about factor 5. Now this year we have 250 birds. And these situations are more or less unique. So the aim of this project of the Godwit Flyway is just to continue this success and export it all across Europe and beyond. So what we did in this project, we picked up the 2 most important breeding sites for the black-tailed Godwit, the Dümmer area in southwest Niedersachsen and the Elbe estuary north of Hamburg. These 2 areas are covering 1/3 of all the German birds. So going okay. And these birds are migratory birds. This map shows the annual cycle of satellite-tracked black-tailed Godwit, bird that we tagged some years ago at the Dümmer. And this shows what this bird is doing within 1 year. So that bird was only 4 months in the breeding route in the north, you see, and 8 months abroad. So the overwintering sites in West Africa, they do not go there directly, so they have several stopover sites. And this is an interesting situation where we have a loop migration, which is quite unusual for those birds. But this shows that it is important to cover, to protect the species, to cover all this staging site and overwintering site to have a positive effect. The Godwit Flyway project is about improving the habitat quality and the reproduction in the breeding grounds, in the staging grounds, and in the wintering grounds. Here in this picture you see the Elbe estuary in the north of Lower Saxony. This already, this part was revetted within the last live project, and within this project is just to continue to boost up the situation, to have better breeding grounds in these 2 major areas for the species. Yeah, and here we are at the Tejo Delta at the moment. And it is impressive for us to see these big flocks of Godwits, thousands of Godwits that are here. And this Tejo Delta actually is one of the most important staging sites in Iberia. So, and at this time of the year, there can be up to 60% of the global population that is staying in this site. So therefore, we are really glad that we found our Portuguese partners, are carrying out this important major work here in this area to protect the species and to protect the species. So our birds that are breeding in our area are dependent in what is going on here. So we are really looking forward to have that progress. On the other hand, we have the wintering sites in West Africa, and on the pictures on the left, we see the situation on top. Rice farming in Africa still is going on in the same way as it had been 3,000 years ago, just by hand. On the other side below, we have these natural wetlands where the Godwits are depending on. And the situation in West Africa, of course, is changing dramatically, as you can see on the right side. So there are big programs to cover the food security in that country, and the modern rice farming that takes place nowadays in these huge areas. Those modern rice practices, the birds cannot cope with that anymore, because in these big rice fields, the structure is changing and we do not have any birds in these modern rice fields. On the other hand, of course, these rice fields are there, they are really consuming lots of water. So we have seen examples there where there is a need of 11,000 liters water per hectare a year. And when you see these big areas where all this water is used, there's of course a risk that there's a lack of water in the national wetlands with all these problems. So these problems in Africa we have to cope with, and we are very glad that we found our partners in Gambia, which will make a big difference out in the field by carrying out the measures. And in West Africa, it is combined with the designation of a really large biosphere reserve of 180,000 hectares. And this project is about supporting this biosphere procedure, and it's about to make a difference in the wintering ground. So we have our partners, the University of Groningen, the university here in Portugal, our NGO, the N4D Duma, the Campania, where we are here at the moment, and the Gambian Department of Wildlife Management. And on the picture, you see where we are walking. We are walking along the Flyway. We have 7 years of action to be undertaken, and we just to line out the most important aims we are implementing within the project. It is about restoring the breeding habitats in Germany. So the two most important sites we have all over the country, the Duma, the Unterelbe, and restoring the staging habitats in Portugal, here in the Tejo estuary, the support of the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in the Gambia, and about the restoring the floodplains habitats in the Gambia to have security of these wintering sites. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. Sorry for the sound. We are nearby the shares, and the shares do some noise, and it's there. They feel the sound of the shares in the direct. So in the second part, we will have the micro in that direction to didn't hear so much the shares, because people in the meeting are saying that the sound they hear is that one. Sorry for you guys there out there. We will try to increase and improve that part in the second part of this meeting. And now we have time to a little break. in the cafe, so persons that are here can go there. Thank you for your time here and see you in 15 minutes. Thank you.
But what is there? We are here. Some not so amplified yet. And that in the second part we try to use this one that I think will reduce the it's more close like to the will reduce the sound of the shells.
Can you still sit behind you?
You don't need it. I don't know why you want it. You also have this one here.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to have the
we can try it.
in the better mode. I always have a few extra words that I have to remember.
Oh,
That's why I
okay.
like to sit behind the computer.
Okay, okay. So what we can do, let's try it. Let's see. What is better option? What is your presentation? I'll need to try.
You can try it.
Welcome back. Here we are. Sorry for the little delay. So now we will start with Andres Barco. Please, Andres, you are back.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andreas Barth, as introduced, and I am from the NWKN, or the German part of the partners. And can you please start with my presentation, Nanda? And I want to give you an overview and insight in the tasks that we are going to implement in this project. Our subject is to optimize the breeding habitats in the Lower Saxony area, and our strategy here is to focus on the most important breeding sites that we have in Lower Saxony, so that we want to strengthen the strongest breeding sites that we still have in Lower Saxony, which is an important federal state in Germany for the black-tailed Godwit. Another slide should appear now. This one. All right. This live project is built around 10 work packages. So there's a heavy workload we have to conduct within the period until 2030, when this project will end. So we have 88 months to conduct all these measures that are implemented there. And we have for the German part, there's one part that I want to have focus on in the following few minutes and take you to the measures that we are going to take to optimize the breeding habitats. There are some other work packages that we have in our responsibility, which is, for example, project management and the public relation things that we have to do. And the number 9 and number 10, looking for the sustainability subjects and the monitoring of the project. But I will focus here on the habitat optimization we have to do in the breeding sites. We have a couple of partners, and I'm speaking here for the German part, which is as the coordinating beneficiary, the Lower Saxony Ministry for Environment, Energy and Climate. And we are from the company, from agency, the NLWKN, which is responsible agency for the water management in Germany, coastal and nature protection. As Heinrich mentioned before, in Germany we have to face a long-lasting decrease of meadow birds over the last decade. It started in the 50s, 60s, went on in the 70s, and had a very strong increase then in the 80s. And data is available since the 80s, and since then until now there's another decrease, so that in Germany there is a strong, severe decline of meadow birds in general, and the black-tailed godwit especially. And you see this when you look at the map of Lower Saxony, for example. This is a map of the area where the federal state of Lower Saxony is located, and this is data from an atlas survey, and all the red dots, these are areas where the black-tailed godwit used to breed and does not longer. So this is area loss that we have to face. And so the breeding distribution of the bird is restricted to only a few remaining spots that we try to maintain. Yeah, and the question is, how can we do this? How can we protect godwits that they have a future? And the experience from people who were protecting the bird and doing the site management, collected experience and collected a number of, we call it 10 commandments that we have to do to be successful in meadow bird protection. First one is that you have to create or to maintain large areas of wet grassland. So another point is then to have these landscapes widely open, which means that we have to remove vertical structures or avoid that there are buildings nearby. So we have to maintain this open. These areas should have low level of disturbance. The very crucial factor is that we have to keep up high water tables in these areas. This is very crucial because high water levels make production of grass and the pastures and meadows slow. So farmers want to take the water out of the landscape as fast as possible. Water birds need high water tables. In general, we have to make sure that there is a low level of traffic level on the soil. And we need a management that is at a low level too. We need to adapt the management of the fields, the harvest of the mowing in the fields at a level that fits to the needs of the breeding birds. And you mentioned that at the point of time when grass was cut in the older days, advanced from, say, mid of June, end of June to the end of April, when the weather conditions are fine, when it's warm, dry, and the water taken out of the area, the farmers are able to mow at the end of April. And this is the time when egg laying or the chicks, when egg laying is not already done, and when many chicks are running around in the fields. On the other hand, we need farmers to maintain those fields in the future. So we have to make sure that they still are able to maintain the fields, to do something in the future, because they are the ones that keep these countries open and make the structures that we need to have the birds breeding in these areas. And we need a high heterogeneity, small scale and in the on landscape level. So if there's water, we have some mud around the grass. The grass is not only grass, there are herbs as well, and we need patches that are somehow different from each other. So, for example, that the chicks go there and that we find a high diversity in the plants and in the structure as well. Of course, another factor which Caroline will report and inform after my talk, we need a low predation rate, because this is a crucial factor that is responsible for a huge amount of the declining of the birds in some areas, at least. Yes, and then we need, of course, biologists, for example, to do monitoring and to see how the development is going on in these areas at the time now, in the future, and compare this and make suggestions how to improve the situation. The crucial thing for all of these factors is that this is not a question of which factor or which activity I could select to have a good breeding site, but this is a question of all or nothing. We have to implement all of these factors to be successful. And this is a really tricky thing that can't be done in many sites. And this is one of the most important reasons why this decline of the bird species, black-tailed godwit and other meadow birds, still going on. Yeah, and how can it look like? We have a site that is prepared in an optimized way to maintain higher black-tailed godwit populations. One of the sites we have a focus on is at the Lake Dümmer. And around the Lake Dümmer there's grasslands. And these grasslands in this wintertime look like this. And this is not the lake, this is the grasslands. And they are flooded in a very extended way. You see, this is around Christmas last year, and even that is not the lake. The lake you see in the background on the right-hand side is clear blue water. This is the lake, these are the grasslands. And of course, this is not sufficient to areas where you have, the farmers want to have rich harvests of grass. They try to avoid these situations. For the birds, this is a very good situation. And as Heinrich already mentioned, the black-tailed godwit is not only the black-tailed godwit. The black-tailed godwit, asked why we choose this bird, it's a kind of umbrella species that stands for another company of many other breeding birds. There are around 30 or 40 of these meadow birds at the Dümmer area alone. But not only birds themselves, it stands for a high diversity of insects, for example, or for a high, rich diversity of plants, or for rich diversity in soil. And let me show you some of the things that we are going to do at the Dümmer area to conduct all these measures that we need to maintain good conditions, optimized habitat for the black-tailed godwit. We are urged to do land purchase, because only the land is in public hand, we are able to maintain, to implement all the measures that we need to be successful. And so for this reason, it's a core measure in our project to do some more land purchase. And this is region, grassland on the map, you see in the northern part of the Lake Dümmer. And the red area is that land that we want to buy within this project. Also, the green area will be added to the area, and the green area is already bought, but outside the nature reserve, and want to swap it inside. And then we have a huge area where we can be successful in implementing measures. You see the numbers, we have 70 hectares that will be bought within the project. And we aim at increasing population trend of black-tailed godwit at the Dümmer area. You see, the population went down at the end of the 90s, down to 50 breeding pairs in the Dümmer area. As Heinrich already mentioned, now we have the 5th height of this number. We are around 250 breeding pairs. And this turnaround took place after the rewetting in this area was completed. And now we are aiming at 440 breeding pairs in the Dümmer area around 2030. And this is due to expand the area that we have to be rewetted, and then we hope to be successful with these measures. This is the other side at the Elbe estuary, Dümmer at the lake. Elbe estuary is the big river Elbe, much larger area, 27,000 hectares of nature reserves. Some are located in the river, but there also we have to make some land purchase just to close some gaps that we have close to the water and to be able to re-wet this area to a larger extent. If you imagine what is there in this box on the left-hand side down in this red frame, there are some green parcels that are already in private hand. And if we are able to buy these parcels, we are able to re-wet the whole area, the whole region that is included in the red box. Even there, we are trying to increase the population to make a turnaround. The number from the large area at the Elbe, lower Elbe estuary, was coming down from 600, 700 breeding pairs, going down to a number that was reached at the 10 years ago. And if you see the development from the last 3 years, maybe if we are optimistic, the turnaround already has taken place, and with new measures in that area, we hope to continue this increasing trend. So we are aiming here at another ambitious number of more than 360 breeding pairs. All right, so this summarizes the main aims that we have. The goal in the end would be to have 2,000 hectares habitat optimized for breeding birds in Low Saxony in those core areas. See these numbers there. And other measures then that we are going to implement is that we want to learn from good examples and export these stories to other sites. We have the Grassbird Habitats project in the back, where there are 25 other sites in Lower Saxony, and the experience we have in Dümmer and at the lower Elbe area is going to transfer the knowledge to the other sites to be implemented right in there. Another point is to redesign agro-environmental schemes just to prepare conditions that farmers get subsidies when they work in these sites, and that they focus with their management on the black-tailed godwit. Another point is networking. Of course, we are working together with many other live projects that are around, and we exchange our knowledge and think of what could be best done in the future, and we draw conclusions from that, expand or develop guidelines, and collect the most successful project ideas and replicate them. Yes, and I think this is what I wanted to say, to point at some issues, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Andreas. It was a pleasure to hear you understand better what we plan to do in the project. Please, in the meantime, while we pass the words to the next speaker, in the case, okay, I say that? But it's okay? Okay, so you need to, press the micro, please, and I will change the presentation. A second, please.
It's working?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Only a second. Changing the name.
Good idea.
Here you are. It's yours, yeah? You can start listening to, sorry, by the way.
No problem. So, okay, hello everyone. I'm Carolina Deutsch. I'm here on behalf of my colleague Marcel Holy, who's actually the expert on the topic I'm talking about, which is Work Package 4, the predator control in German breeding habitats. So, we saw this slide before, so I skipped this one. And a few words about the NGO we are working for. It's the NUVD, NUVD, Natur- und Umweltschutzvereinigung Dümmer, which translates to Association for the Conservation of Nature and Environment at Lake Dümmer. And it was founded in 2010 to, the idea was to work on nature conservation topics together with local stakeholders, like
So you can continue. Don't
from agriculture and tourism and water management and also hunters, so that everyone is content with the work on nature conservation. And the NUVD has grown to 7 employees by now who are working at research, conservation, and nature education, environmental education, not only in Lower Saxony but also in the neighboring federal states. Okay, the predator control we are working on, we are doing that within this project. It's three sites, which is the Dümmer and Lower Elbe, which are the two largest breeding sites, as Andreas already mentioned. Two largest breeding sites for bacterial Godwit in Lower Saxony with 230 and 220 breeding pairs respectively. And we also work in Bollermoor, which is a traditional whaler breeding site near the Dümmer. And as we already heard, all breeding sites are managed by the federal agency to achieve optimal habitats for whalers. The work of the management led to optimal habitats, so they are very good for the black-tailed godwit, for example. But nevertheless, the improvement of the improvement of the numbers of breeding pairs, of breeding success, never matched the improvement of the habitat conditions. And investigations have found then that the main factor for that is the predator control, the predation, which is why in 2010 a project was started to control the predator numbers in the area. The project was coordinated by the NUVD and carried out by local hunters. And at first, for the first 4 years, it was only done in the southern part of the SPA. So you can see in the figure on the left-hand side, the red line is for the southern part. The numbers of breeding pairs go up. And at the same time, the blue line for the northern part stays on a low level. And then in the winter of 2014 to 2015, the predator control also started in the northern part, and then the numbers of breeding pairs started to go up as well. The one disadvantage of working with the local hunters is that you are dependent on the efforts they put into their work. And since the small game hunting is restricted in public hunting grounds, the motivation of some of the private hunters went down over time, so they did not put up the necessary effort to keep the numbers of predators low enough in the area. Which is why, in agreement with all the local hunters, there was a professional hunter employed in 2019 for the work in the public hunting grounds to control the predators, the koiku, and wild boar. The professional hunter can, of course, put more time into the work. Are you still hearing me?
Yeah.
And can also do, for example, stoat trapping on a very large scale. So in the figure on the right-hand side, you can see locations of stoat traps in the southern part of the protected area. They were not there put up all at the same time. This was on over a period of time, but still it's a lot of work to check all the traps, and that can be done by private hunters in their free time. The professional hunter can also do intensive night hunting and go through the area during the breeding time and check for predators that are in there, and also can check for all settling sites for fox litters during the springtime. So this work is quite successful. So by now the losses of clutches and chicks by mammal predators are very low, but the predation by birds of prey is going up. And we could see by using cameras that they, for example, the buzzards, which is a nest in the picture is a buzzard nest, it depends on the pair. There are individual differences, but they can bring in a lot of wader chicks. So one pair last year carried in 250 wader chicks, which is quite a lot for the area we're talking about. And a little curiosity is on the left-hand side, the small picture, it's of a little owl, and you can see the antenna of a tag of a lapwing chick sticking out of that. So by tagging the chicks, it was also found out that the birds of prey play a very important role in predation right now. And the other small picture, there is a kestrel carrying a lapwing chick to the nest. Now, the next site is Bollermoor, the conservation area Bollermoor and Langeloor, which is situated 30 kilometers north of Dümmer. It's pretty small, but it's a traditional breeding site. It used to have pretty good numbers for riders. And the management, the NBKN, the federal agency, is also going well, and it's pretty convenient there that the area is in public hands. So coherent public land, which makes it easy which makes the rewetting very easy. But still, also in this site, the decline of breeding pair numbers is still ongoing. So to paint the picture, there were 15 breeding pairs of black-tailed Godwit in 2006. That number has gone down to one breeding pair in 2020, and in the last year there was only one single Godwit male left. To tackle that problem, the idea was to equip the local hunters with traps in 2018, to put them in the core area and catch the predators, but the problem is that the small game hunting is restricted, so the effort of the local hunters was just not big enough to keep the numbers of predators low enough. in the surrounding areas, the effort was much higher. Then the next site is Lower Elbe. We already heard about that one as well. This is the core breeding area, or the core area where the professional hunting takes place. It started in 2013, and for this professional hunter, it's very convenient that he's a local who has grown up there and therefore can work across borders of public breeding sites and private, not breeding sites, hunting grounds and private hunting grounds. So the boxes, the red boxes, are the public hunting grounds, which are surrounded by private hunting grounds. But the whole SPA is much bigger than this part you could see in the last slide, and it's just too big for one professional hunter to keep the numbers of predators low enough in the protected area. Now the first achievements of this project, I think I skipped one too far. At Lake Dümmer are the capacity building for professional hunting. So we have currently one apprentice for professional hunting working in the predator control, and also one person in the volunteer program who's planning to become a professional hunter in the next year, who's also helping with that. In general, the trap network at Dümmer is being extended also by complementary funding. At Bollamore, we are working on the intensification of predator control. So now the professional hunters are allowed to, the local hunters are agreeing that the professional hunter can take over the work on the traps, and the traps are being repaired, and so now the predator control can be more intensive in this area. At Lower Elbe, there is a second professional hunter in part-time being employed by the NUBD with live farming. And there as well, the trap network is being extended and modified. So there were some traps. You can see now the change in the pattern of the blue markings. There were traps that were not very suitable for this kind of trapping of predators, and they are being replaced. Another good thing is that we could introduce a thermal drone as a hunting tool, which is very helpful for hunting predators in the, for example, in the reeds. You can see there, where they are a very good place for predators to hide in, and you cannot find them very easily. When you have a drone, you can cover a large area in a small amount of time and find the predators more easily and with less disturbance for the whole area. In this case, it's raccoon dogs. So when you found them, the hunter can work more targeted. And this actually works, as you can see in the picture. For the future, there is a plan to build the capacity of professional hunting even further at Lake Dümmer. So the plan is to have 2 apprentices per year when there are enough applicants, obviously. And the goal is to provide hunters that are specialized in meadowbird protection for future projects, also in other areas. And in the figures you can see that that's very important because the trends are, in most of the areas, are still going downwards. So the trends for breeding pair numbers. At Lake Dümmer, in the northern part of the protected area, the hunting grounds are in private hands, but they will become public hunting grounds in the years from 2026 to 2028. Subsequently, and this has to be prepared now. And when they are public hunting grounds, the professional hunters employed by NUVD will be working there on the predator control. In Bollamore, it's planned to expand the predator control from the core breeding area to the private hunting grounds surrounding this core area. And we will need agreements by the private hunters for that. At Lower Elbe, there's also an intensification planned to employ a second full-time professional hunter, and this is supposed to start this summer. So in conclusion, the overall aims are to preserve Bollamore as a breeding site for Godwits, to raise and keep reproductive success of Godwits above 0.6/6 per pair in all project areas, which would mean a significant increase of breeding population. And we need to find ways to deal with high raptor predation, which we are working on right now, actually. And of course, as I mentioned, the capacity building of professional hunters, so train hunters for future meadowlark protection projects. So, thank you, that was everything.
Thank you, Holly. It was a pleasure to hear you. Thank you for your efforts. So now we will proceed. Next presentation is from Portugal. Giselle from Universidade de Aveiro will present what is planned to do in Portugal. I'm changing the name.
Conseguem ouvir?
And
Is it off? Caroline, is it off?
Yeah.
Agora?
Agora?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes, a moment.
Okay. First of all, it's great to be here to present this project to you guys. It's also, maybe you already mentioned this, it's also the day where we celebrate wetlands today, the 2nd of February. So it's World Wetlands Day. So it's really exciting to be able to show you what we plan to do in this wetland of the Tagus estuary. And I'm going to excuse from our foreign colleagues, and I'm going to change to Portuguese if you don't mind. But the slides are in English, so you can nevertheless follow them, and those online, hopefully, as well. My name is, o meu nome é José Alves, sou investigador na Universidade de Aveiro. Somos um dos parceiros neste projeto LIFE, juntamente com a Companhia das Ilhas aqui em Portugal. Eu hoje preparei uma apresentação que fala muito do trabalho que a Universidade de Aveiro vai desenvolver neste projeto, mas convém nunca esquecer que isto é feito de mãos dadas com a Companhia das Ilhas. Espero mencionar a Companhia das Ilhas várias vezes, mas assinalar que é importante não esquecer que não podemos estar um sem o outro. Estamos os dois emparelhados neste trabalho. E gostava também de começar por vos falar um pouco. Give me a minute, ok? Eu falo em português, mas depois ouço em inglês, ok? Bem. Muito bem. Agora? Falar-vos um pouco da importância do estuário do Tejo para as aves migradoras ao longo da rota migratória. Cerca de mais de 200 mil aves são contadas com regularidade. O Vítor Encarnação não me vai deixar mentir. Na migração, este número pode atingir 300 mil aves. Isto significa que o Tejo é realmente um grande local de concentração de aves migradoras, não só durante a parte da invernada, a parte não reprodutora destas aves, mas sobretudo, ou também, durante a migração, particularmente a migração primaveril ou pré-nupcial. Na história do Tejo, o maçarico de direito, a espécie com que vamos trabalhar, tem duas populações. No outono e no inverno, esta população são cerca de 5 mil a 10 mil indivíduos. é sobretudo a subespécie islândica, que se reproduz na Islândia, e depois, na migração primaveril, há uma concentração de indivíduos de outra subespécie, a subespécie continental, a subespécie limosa, que utilizam sobretudo os arrozais e o estuário do Tejo como um sítio de paragem migratória, e estes números podem então chegar a cerca de 40 a 50 mil aves, com muita frequência, mas há contagens que chegam a 80 mil aves, concentrando uma grande parte desta população aqui no estuário do Tejo. Nós já temos trabalhado com esta espécie há vários anos, ainda antes deste projeto se iniciar, que é agora, e temos feito marcação com aparelhos GPS de algumas destas aves. Estas linhas indicam realmente aves que foram capturadas aqui no estuário do Tejo durante esta paragem migratória e, como podem ver, a grande maioria foi para os Países Baixos, produziu-se nos Países Baixos. Uma ave foi até à Alemanha, que é onde os nossos parceiros na época de reprodução vão estar a trabalhar. Outra ave foi até à Islândia e uma delas ficou na Irlanda, provavelmente foi pesada. Mas estas são as ligações que se estabelecem nesta população entre o estuário do Tejo e as suas zonas de reprodução. Podemos também fazer um pouco um zoom out e perceber estas migrações num contexto ainda maior e vermos que estas aves, depois de saírem do Tejo e irem até às zonas de reprodução, depois muitas delas regressam para a Península Ibérica, outras vão até a África Ocidental e regressarão no próximo ano ao estuário do Tejo para fazer novamente a sua paragem migratória. Portanto, este é o ciclo anual e os locais que estas aves usam ao longo de todo o ano. Os arrozais, como já sabemos dos trabalhos anteriores, são realmente cruciais para esta espécie, sobretudo para esta população, para a população continental, porque são a fonte de alimento. É o alimento que permite que estas aves consigam engordar e obter energia para fazer as suas migrações para as zonas de reprodução. Sabemos também dos trabalhos anteriores, trabalhos que na altura fiz e liderados pelo nosso colega Pedro Lourenço, que há dois fatores principais que afetam a qualidade do habitat para a espécie limosa, para o maciço direito, e estes fatores são os níveis de água, porque a água permite que estas aves penetrem com o seu bico no sedimento e recolham pequenos invertebrados e, sobretudo, nos sementes do arroz. E, estando arrozais secos, isto não é possível, ou estando com muita água, não são aves que mergulhem e se alimentem do arroz debaixo da água. Portanto, o nível de água é muito importante. Por outro lado, os regimes de gradagem, ou lavragem do solo, se quiserem, são também, é também o segundo fator mais importante destas aves, porque estes regimes permitem que algumas sementes venham à superfície, outras sejam enterradas, dependendo do time ou do tempo no ano em que esta gradagem é feita. Atualmente, no estuário do Tejo, há uma série de sinais vermelhos a sentidos proibidos. Há várias ameaças. Muitas delas têm a ver com a degradação dos habitats. Um exemplo é o abandono de salinas, que tem sido cada vez mais comum, e este abandono tem muitas vezes como função usar estas áreas, estas salinas, para a aquacultura, ficando inacessível às aves. Infelizmente, e embora haja planos de ação, quer para a reserva natural, quer para a ZPE e do estuário do Tejo, há muita inação nestes planos de ação. Portanto, há muita coisa que fica por cumprir. Ao longo dos últimos 20 anos tem sido realmente difícil fazer ações de conservação ou que estas ações de conservação tenham efeitos práticos e, portanto, é importante reverter esta tendência. Ao mesmo tempo, há novas ameaças, como sejam o novo aeroporto de Lisboa, felizmente tivemos boa notícia esta semana, mas há outras como os desenvolvimentos de infraestruturas para turismo ou para habitação. Nem tudo é mau, há também sinais positivos. Um deles é que o estuário do Tejo pode servir como um mitigador de problemas que ocorrem noutras zonas úmidas da Península Ibérica, nomeadamente em Doñana, onde sabemos que há um problema cada vez mais sério devido à seca. A migração do maçarico de direito, felizmente, não se sobrepõe, ou muito pouco se sobrepõe ao período de produção de arroz, portanto há aqui oportunidades para ver soluções de win-win, em que o arrozal seja produtivo em termos de arroz, mas que possa, fora dessa época, ser um bom habitat para estas aves. a capacidade de fazer restauração destes habitats, quer seja dos arrozais, quer seja das salinhas ou até das lagoas costeiras, nomeadamente aqui no Evoa, é uma grande oportunidade para que os habitats das zonas úmidas sejam favoráveis para esta espécie. Temos várias ambições neste projeto, especificamente falando dos working packages, dos pacotes de trabalho. Nós, na Universidade de Aveiro, estamos com o working package 6, pretendemos, juntamente com a Companhia das Lesírias, fazer a restauração de vários habitats, especificamente fazer a regulação da água, da gestão da água nos arrozais, cerca de 300 hectares, nas lagoas costeiras, são 71 hectares aqui no Evoa, e também na salina da Saragossa, que pretende ser recuperada para estas aves, usando o maçarico direito como uma espécie bandeira. O zoom in nos locais onde vamos estar a trabalhar, dentro da área protegida do estuário do Tejo, especificamente na Lesíria e especificamente aí nestes 3 locais que podem ver no mapa, os arrozais, a salina Saragossa e as lagoas do Evoa. Todos estes locais são propriedade da Companhia das Lesírias e é, portanto, aqui um trabalho de equipe que vamos fazer juntamente com eles. Há mais slides na apresentação, não é? Estamos aqui com...
Ele está a pensar.
Está a pensar? Ok. Vamos todos ajudar o computador a pensar.
É um filme, ótimo.
Não.
Este que passou é que era para
Pois, este aqui era para ter publicado.
Ah, assim, pois está a aplicar, mas espera. Eu vou sair e.
Muito bem. Então vamos esperar mais um bocadinho.
Foi o PowerPoint. Este.
Se essa não é para já para o slide seguinte.
Já pus, já pus.
Ok.
Yes.
Ok, muito bem. Portanto, uma das tarefas neste Working Package é aumentar a atratividade dos habitats. Vamos fazer trabalho para quantificar a qualidade do alimento usando diferentes níveis de gestão dos níveis, ou melhor, níveis de gestão diferentes em termos da água, mas também no regime de gradagem. Nós já fizemos esta planificação para este ano, na verdade, e em outubro o que pretendemos fazer é um mosaico em diferentes talhões dos arrozais, em que fazemos gradagens em diferentes alturas, fazemos em diferentes níveis de água, através de gestão precisamente destes talhões. Portanto, a ideia é, em alguns deles, fazer uma gradagem logo em outubro, depois fazer um mosaico de níveis de água em que algumas delas têm gradagem e outras não têm, seguidamente fazer uma nova gradagem já em janeiro, com a ideia de remover o solo e, idealmente, trazer algumas das sementes para a superfície. Novamente, em algumas destes talhões vai haver esta segunda gradagem, para alguns deles é a primeira. E, portanto, aqui vamos conjugar uma série de diferentes manipulações para perceber depois, quantificando nomeadamente a quantidade de sementes, a quantidade de invertebrados que há disponível para estas aves, mediante diferentes regimes de gestão. Vamos, obviamente, também medir a qualidade do solo e vários parâmetros para perceber se depois há consequências para o arroz em termos de quantidade de matéria orgânica, pH, salinidades, etc., após estas intervenções fora da época de produção do arroz. Vamos também ter algumas tentativas de perceber se podemos, através da concentração das aves em alguns destes locais, reduzir a introdução ou a colocação de fertilizantes nestas zonas. O nosso trabalho será muito de avaliar estas manipulações e isso tem muito a ver com a contagem das aves, saber quantos maçaricos é que estão presentes, perceber também em termos energéticos quais é que são as taxas de alimentação, quanto tempo é que passam a alimentação nestes locais tanto nas zonas intervencionadas como naqueles territórios em que não vai haver gestão ativa. De forma mais pormenorizada, queremos perceber a seleção de habitat e para isso vamos colocar aparelhos GPS em cerca de 30 aves para realmente ver se estas intervenções estão a ter efeitos efetivos na seleção destes habitats para esta espécie. Vamos também perceber se há potencialmente aqui outra solução do win-win em que o pisoteio em alguns destes locais possa ter algum efeito no controle de espécies de ervas daninhas. Além da nossa working package, obviamente no projeto vamos trabalhar com outras working packages, e numa delas vamos fazer juntamente com a Companhia das Resíduos uma série de questionários aos arrozais para perceber onde é que podemos encontrar boas práticas na gestão do arroz, na tentativa de chegar a arrozais que sejam bird-friendly ou amigos das aves. Além do trabalho do arroz, que vai ser uma das grandes componentes, vamos também recuperar, como já vos disse, a salina Saragossa e ajudar aqui a gestão da água, sobretudo da água, nas lagoas do Evoa. Isto será feito, obviamente, pela Companhia dos Resíduos e o nosso papel será avaliar essas intervenções. O que faremos, nomeadamente, é fazer contagens, mais uma vez, tendo em consideração os ciclos de dia e de noite, perceber se algumas dessas zonas são mais usadas numa parte do dia e da noite, e também medir ao longo do período da maré a qualidade do restauro que vai acontecer nestes locais. Obviamente que vamos estar também a capturar as aves, como mencionei já, para colocar aparelhos GPS, mas não somos apenas nós. O colega José, que vai falar a seguir, vai também dentro deste projeto colocar mais linhas de cor nestas aves, colocar aparelhos GPS, e esta informação será partilhada entre os vários parceiros para realmente quantificar se estas ações de gestão terão efeito nestas aves. Ok, temos uma série de deliverables, ou de produtos, se quiserem. Um deles será um livrete sobre práticas de restauração de salinas. É uma coisa que está pouco feita, né? A restauração das salinas para deixarem de ser locais onde se produz sal, mas sim para serem locais bons para as aves. Vamos fazer isso durante o projeto. Vamos também ter artigos científicos e relatórios em que vamos colocar esta informação cá fora, saber realmente quais é que são os inputs orgânicos em vários arrozais, também saber se estas ideias do pisoteio e outras podem ter efeitos para além do arroz propriamente dito. Obviamente vamos trabalhar sobre a quantificação da gestão para a espécie em termos de comida, é muito essencial, mas também em termos das taxas de alimentação que conseguem obter nestes diferentes locais. Finalmente, vamos também falar com os agricultores e comunicar com os produtores de arroz para tentar perceber que esquemas agroambientais poderíamos levar para além do projeto. Em todos os projetos LIFE acabará, e depois a questão é sempre um pouco como é que se consegue financiar estes trabalhos ou esta gestão de habitat para além do projeto em si mesmo. E vamos também ter mais um guia de boas práticas em como fazer o tal Bird Friendly Rice. Vou acabar esta apresentação com as conclusões essenciais. O grande objetivo é melhorar o habitat para que a biodiversidade no estuário de Tejo, e particularmente no Maçarico de Direito, possa ter melhor qualidade desse mesmo habitat que usa. Vamos também desenvolver e melhorar as sinergias entre os vários stakeholders da região para promover a optimização destas zonas úmidas e destes habitats em particular. E, finalmente, vamos fazer trabalhos de disseminação, juntamente também com a Companhia das Resíduos, que terá um papel muito importante nesse aspecto, sobretudo aqui no Evoa, para fazer a disseminação das conclusões do projeto. E creio que é tudo. Muito obrigado pela vossa atenção.
Thank you, José. So, next step, in our meeting will be José Mazel. No, it's here. And the guy from Gambia, I don't know if there is anyone in the chat room with these changes that want to. No, so we'll pass through. So let's to the next presentation, Jos on Schmeicher. Sorry, I tried. But maybe it'll be very well written here.
Well, that's correct.
Thank you. You can start. I will put the presentation only 2 seconds. Thank you.
Okay, I will second. Yep, okay, thanks. Welcome everyone. I think this is going to be the final talk, right, of this morning. It's always nice to end with such a beautiful series of images of local Godwit, and I'm going to show you a lot of pictures, not so many graphs, not so many text. So be prepared, because we are going to talk about impact monitoring. And the fact that there is so much attention within this project for monitoring is already quite special, to be honest. There have been many projects in the past that simply forgot about monitoring, or it was always at the end of the budget and there was always too late, not enough money to carry out your monitoring properly. So I think that's a great thing, already a great achievement of this project. So I'm working for the University of Groningen. The University of Groningen is already working on black accounts for a long time. I started working on this project for more than 20 years ago with black accounts. In the beginning, it was mainly focused on understanding a bit more about the demographics of black accounts. Why were they declining so rapidly? And could we find a model to predict what would be going on? Well, we can, and it will continue to decline, especially if we don't find out what are the true reasons behind this decline. And the true reasons behind the decline are, of course, you need specialists to find out what's happening. And over the years, we found out that we can only get these answers if we have it through a food lab approach. So we don't only study black godwits, but you also have to study what they eat, insects, soil microfauna. But you also have to study the birds that are eating black godwits. These are, of course, the predators. You've seen in the presentations before that predation is a serious issue when it comes to protection of meadow birds. But not forget about another important aspect that is also covered within our project, which are the socio-economical aspects. You can say we make everything a nature reserve, but it's difficult to make an income out of a nature reserve. So you also have to think about how can we improve circumstances for farmers along the flyway, and not only for black godwits along the flyway. Well, the farmers were on the bridge here, right, this morning?
Yeah.
And that's for a reason, because there are going to be elections in Europe, of course, and they want to put pressure on that things stay as they are. That things simply can't stay as they are, because that will mean the total loss of biodiversity. Okay, black godwits in the Netherlands. We host at this moment still 85% of the Northern European population. It's for a reason, of course, that we have declared the black godwit our national bird. It was easy to choose this species. At the moment, about 25,000 breeding pairs, and then the next step in Northwestern Europe is Germany, 3,500 breeding pairs. So you can imagine that if the Dutch population declines by 50%, you lose quite a big deal of the total population. Well, this is the story of my life. This is about the time when I was born in the 60s. This is what the Netherlands looked like at that time. At that time, we were still over 100,000 breeding pairs of black Godwits. So we are facing a decline of about 80% of the total population by now. And this decline still hasn't stopped. Of course, it's for a reason that we've chosen this black Godwit as a flagship species. It's our national bird and it represents the total red grasslet breeding bird community. To give you an idea of what's going on in the Netherlands in meadowbird protection, the blue line is showing the decline of black Godwits over the past decades. And you can see there doesn't seem to be an end to this decline yet. On the other hand, in the red line, you see the amount of money being spent. It's both research, but also to a large extent in agro-environmental schemes. The reason for that is that we are still in a position that many of the birds breed on farmland, not in a reserve. So you can say, okay, let's only protect them in a reserve, but then you will lose more than 80% of the population in the end anyway. So you have to deal with farmers to make it attractive for them to also look after their birds on their land. So what are the causes of this habitat loss and degradation that is causing this decline of black Godwits? Well, simply, the Netherlands is a very populated country. We simply lost 20% of all the habitat to urbanization, new roads, new houses that have to be built for all those people living in this relatively small country. The biggest chunk of all the decline is caused by this change in agriculture in the Netherlands. You know that after the United States, we are the second largest exporting country of agricultural products, larger than Germany, larger than France. So imagine what an effect that must have on this tiny country, and of the not only humans but also of the animals living in this tiny country. So it's not a big surprise that it's becoming more and more difficult for birds and biodiversity in general to survive in a Dutch landscape. As we mentioned before, also in the Netherlands, predation has increased, but that's also because this landscape has changed so much. We have created a landscape that has made it so simple for predators to find the remaining hotspots of biodiversity, where they can easily take a snack, or even more than a snack, and in that way have a huge effect on the total population. And the last thing I want to mention that is definitely also true in the Netherlands, that the climate change is having an effect also on the breeding population. Our models show clearly that at the moment it is true that only the first cohort of about 25% of the chicks every year make some sort of a chance to survive to the next generation, but the last 3/4 of the chicks hardly stand a chance. And part of that is probably due to climate change. It has to do with food availability, it has to do with agricultural advancements in the breeding season. Like one of the previous speakers said, we are mowing nowadays already in the end of April. That certainly wouldn't have been possible in the 60s. Okay. We have identified some of the causes, and I want to mention this one as well. This big agricultural changes in the Netherlands are of course driven mostly by the European Union. So the changes in the Netherlands are the same as the changes that are happening all over Europe. Countries that are joining the EU face a similar biodiversity loss. And to give you an impression about the amount of money that is going on in this big agro, you remember the total budget for the Netherlands annually for meadowbird protection? It was 33.4 million euros. The budget only for the pesticide lobby in Europe is 33.5 million euros. And that's only the lobby. That's not the amount of money that is going on in research. That is not going, all the money is, the other money is going around in subsidizing agriculture in a disastrous way. So imagine what impact that must have on our countrysides in all our countries. So, no surprise, after Malta, the Netherlands has the severest biodiversity loss in all over Europe. And if you look at the picture, black godwits are one of those lines, but all agricultural living animals, all farmed birds, are declining very rapidly. But I want to point out also the red line. It's deliberately in Dutch, so you can't have an idea of the species that I'm mentioning there. Who's the species in the red line? I will explain to you. It's not well, it's also a species, but it's farmers. So the decline of farmers is going as rapid as the decline of biodiversity in the Netherlands. So the criticism that nature conservation is causing the decline of farmers in the Netherlands, which is sometimes said because we buy land to make a nature reserve out of it, it's an autonomous process, this decline of farmers, because of this intensification of agriculture. You can only survive as a farmer nowadays if you grow larger and larger. And growing larger and larger is simply meaning that you're eating up your neighbors. Okay, enough trouble in the Netherlands and in Germany because it's quite a parallel story. Huh? In Iberia, of course, we have several important spots, like here in Extremadura, in Doñana, and also, of course, here in the Tejo estuary, where you can find a lot of godwits. Are things going much better over there? Well, you're all from here. We all have heard, of course, about the big drought in Doñana. Let's be true. Most of the stories about the strawberries. The strawberries are not the most important reason for things going worse for black godwits. That's mainly has to do with the severe loss in the surface of rice fields that are being kept. There's simply not enough water for the rice fields, and birds are dependent on those rice fields. The loss of water is not only playing a role here next to Madura. Next to Madura, it's a different thing that's yeah, it's coming up. Okay. Wait. It's very slow. Yes. Okay, right. Here you can see what's happening in Extremadura very, very well. So we're also coming there for more than 10, 15 years now, and the surface of rice in that area is declining every year, simply because there's not enough water to maintain all those rice fields. And you can see what's happening very clearly on this picture. A lot of land is simply changed into olive farmlands. So olive trees are taking up a larger proportion of the landscape. Fruits, to some extent, almonds, more maize. And of course, yeah, to the left is godwit habitat after it has been harvested, but to the right, there's no place for godwits in such a place. So what's happening? Birds are going definitely more to Portugal. We have shown in a scientific analysis that, based on coloring birds, that there is a shift going from birds going from Extremadura to Portugal. So Portugal better be a safe haven for them, because it's one of the last strongholds at the moment. But of course, here come the Dutch again, and in large numbers. And of course, this is having an effect on this side. Well, I don't have to explain to you. Everyone knows about the situation here that the man next to me to the most. Well, let's hope that the latest news is good news, and that the impact of the airport is not going to be is not going to have such a huge effect on black godwits anymore. Still having an effect, of course, but for black godwits, they might be off the hook if everything turns out. We hope it will turn out. Let's see. Okay, let's shift over now one continent further to the Senegal Delta. See, if you come there, you can see there is still a lot of space for animals there. There's still, you think everything is still okay. That's your first impression until you start talking with the people out there and you realize a bit more how the system is working. The amount of habitat loss and degradation is huge. And I put up damming, especially in the beginning, because that is when it all started. In the 1980s, there was a big dam built in the Senegal Delta, which was fantastic for agriculture, because now you can use the water from the river more effectively for an irrigation project. But you have to keep in mind that this attractiveness of the Senegal Delta was created over decades or over centuries, of course, because it was a floodplain, water coming after the rainy season, going to the sea, and it washed out all the salt water that degraded from the sea during the dry season, and it was a complete, how you say it was a completely, not the English word for it. It was a dynamic system. Yes, that's the word. It was completely dynamic, and there were always places for Godwit to be. It must have been like that. Of course, I've never seen it like that. And because of this damming, there is no flushing out of the salt water anymore. So in the soil, there is still a lot of salt. And when you start having agriculture there is this big risk of salinization of your lands. And it will keep you producing some rice for a few years, but after some time, many of those places simply become unsuitable for rice cultivation and for anything else. They become, well, quite degraded and quite boring landscapes, to be honest. There's huge pesticide use, increasing amount of invasive species, because the invasive species, they couldn't cope with the salt, but now the salt is gone. Because there's no flushing out anymore because of the huge effluent of the river from after the rainy season. So those invasive species, they cover huge amounts of this precious delta. Well, the intensive rice cultivation is playing a role there as well. And the latest thing on the list is the exploitation of gas and oil in front of the coast of this area. Oh, go too fast. The south, more or less similar situations, different causes. There is climate change playing a big role, together with the problem of people going to the city. So there's simply not enough people left anymore in the field, for instance, to protect the outer dike of the rice fields. So in the south, so let's a bit more south, in Guinea-Bissau and the Gambia, the rice cultivation is completely different from the rice that you see here. What you see here, it's very much like what you have in the Senegal Delta. That's what it more or less looks like. But in the south, it's very different. You can't see it too well, but on the top picture, you see that the parcels, they are about the size of from here to Sandra to the corner to this. That's about the size of a rice parcel. And it's all done by hand. But if people leave to find a better job in the city, especially the young men that have to do the hard labor of maintaining all the dikes, and especially the outer dike that protects the rice fields from the salt, from the mangroves, if that dike breaks through, you lose the entire rice field. And that has happened in many, many, many places. So, no hope? Yes, of course, there is always hope, because those birds, they can keep on returning, coming to us. Not only in the breeding grounds, but also to here. So we can't simply say we stop everything, because there are still so many of them coming back, and not only black Godwit, many of those species. This bird is really special for me. This is my favorite bird. It was born only a kilometer from my house. As a chick, we ringed it as a chick, and it started to breed in another area at the other side of the village, also 1 kilometer from my house. I followed it for many, many, many years. I saw it myself in Senegal. How can you give up on such a bird? Simply impossible. So we have to fight as long as possible for all these precious birds. And we can do that with the help of big projects, but also with the help of science. I want to stress out that many successful conservation projects are based on research. Let alone here the situation here in the tigers. What if the researchers wouldn't have stepped in? Of course, you need other people as well from conservation organizations. But all these data are so convincing about what has to happen. And we want, with our institute at university, we want to look at the world through the eyes of a bird, to understand what's going on, and to understand what is necessary to change trends. That's the core business of our institute. And thanks to the use of satellite transmitters here, but also in other places, we are capable of making a big change. In the beginning, satellite transmitters were as big as a Godwit. Well, that doesn't help. If you want to track a Godwit, then you have a problem. But they became smaller and smaller, and now they're really about as tiny as 4 or 5 grams. That's something that black Godwit can carry easily. Actually, we have carried out recently a study, and the effect on the survival of black Godwits carrying satellite transmitter as small as those ones, is completely, zero. It's very close to zero. We can't detect the difference anymore between normal survival of black Godwits and Godwits in such a small device. It's a question many people often have: don't they get problems with the transmitter? And imagine what this means for the information that we get, for instance, about the identification of key sites in places where it's much more difficult to get information from, like here in West Africa. We have over 200,000 location fixes of black Godwits. And think of the impact of that compared to all the research, ringing research that has been done before. In the Netherlands, we started in 1911 with ringing black Godwits. We have ringed 80,000 black Godwits, and we have 200 points in Africa based on metal rings, and now we have 200,000 points of locations where Godwits go to based on 10 years of satellite tracking. So why do we still ring? I want to start this discussion at some point with our ringing office. And because of all this fantastic information that you get with the satellite tracking information, it's much easier to target your conservation efforts. So, for instance, one of the parts of this project is going to be in the Gambia. Of the Gambia, there were 2 ring recoveries of metal rings, and we have 2,500 ring recoveries now of data points, of location fixes by satellite transmitters. And they show us exactly what needs to be done in the Gambia if you want to focus your attention to the most important areas of the Gambia. But the good thing is that the North Bank is going to be a biosphere reserve, and we can easily connect with the LIFE project, with the Flyway, to this big thing happening. And within this project, we can try to restore degraded habitat for black Godwits in the Gambia. And the good thing is, and that's quite unique to be honest, we know the 0.0 of the start of the project when we are going to start changing things in the Gambia. We know already what the situation is right now. We don't have to wait for getting a lot of information about what the situation is right now, because that's sometimes very difficult. If you start monitoring after a few years, you don't know anymore what the situation was in the beginning. And we know exactly what the situation is in the beginning. We have to write it down, but the birds tell us already what the situation is at the moment. And thereby we can easily monitor the effect of all the measures that are going to be taken in the Gambia. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with another beautiful story that we should not be disappointed about this. We should be disappointed because of this lack of all this biodiversity loss and this loss of the population of black Godwits. But if you don't enjoy anymore the small moments of hope that you can have because of the things that you actually can do, then I want to point you to this bird. This was about the last breeding Godwit in the farm of a farmer living next to me. And this farmer said, I'm going to give up on black Godwits because there's no way I can help them anymore. But now he has more than 30 breeding pairs in this very same area. And how did it happen? Simply because we were buying the right milk. This farmer was participating in a project that for every liter of milk or other dairy products that he is producing, a part of it is going to a fund, and from this fund he can realize measures on his land that are beneficial for meadowbirds. And within just a few years, the number of meadowbirds on this land went from 1 or 2 breeding pairs to 30 breeding pairs. And also raising chicks, not just having breeding pairs, but also raising chicks. So in every part of the Flyway, we can start small. Here in the Tejo, we have 300 hectares that we are going to manage now in the most optimal way. You can say, not 300 hectares of this huge surface that you are managing here. But we learn from it, and they can give us hope and give us a lot of information on what needs to be done on a larger scale. The live projects are, of course, never capable of changing everything, but they can show us the way. If we want to scale up, how should we do it? So start small, think big. And think big is what they did in Germany. Already 30 years ago, they realized that if you're going this way, then this population in the Duber area is going to be extinct within no time. And by taking the right measures, starting small, they realized this tremendous increase in black oak godwits. You can say, well, that's only a few hundred breeding pairs. But still, they show that something is still possible. And as long as these graphs exist, I would say, please continue with it. And I think that's exactly what I want to end with. The Godwit Flyway project and also the Live IP project are showing us the way to get out of this misery and hopefully to a brighter Godwit future. And let's hope it's going to be party time for Godwits in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. It's a pleasure to be here and giving us some hope and good examples about what is already going on. Now there is some time to questions. I will ask who is in the room in the studio at StreamYard if wants to participate to move the camera on or give us any sign in the comments, even and also who is with us at YouTube. If you want to do some comments, you can do it. We can share here your comments and answer your questions if you have any question. In the meantime, while you write your questions or while you think where it's possible to enter here in the studio, you have the StreamYard link if you want to speak and be seen. You also can do it using the StreamYard link that is in the comments. If in the meantime here, if anyone have any comments or questions, please raise your hands. Rafael can go with the micro to answer to you. Your question is here also the persons that are not here. So Rafael.
Yeah, I always feel a bit weird if I'm going to ask the questions about our own project, of course. But it triggered me on one of the pictures that I saw, the amount of traps that you're using to catch stoats, for instance. And I was wondering about the bycatch in a project like this. I can imagine that people have a question about that. What is happening to other fauna that is around, of course, in those areas? How you are dealing with not making unnecessary kills and other wildlife?
The traps we are using have transmitters, are they called that right? I don't know. So they send a message to the hunter when the traps are closed, and he then will go there as quickly as possible and check the trap, and when there's a hair in there or something like that, it will just be left out of the trap. So it's live traps with the technique on there that the hunter can approach the trap as soon as possible.
There is a question at the StreamYard. This kickoff the YouTube link ready, so anytime you want to review or see if you don't see everything, you can enter in the YouTube link and see this kickoff again. So the presentation will be there. There is not planned to share the PowerPoints for using other via. Anyway, we will do a press release for who wants to have more information. And I think it's answered. If you have any other doubt, please tell us. It's everyone very quiet. Anyone wants to do any question? Are you very okay? So everyone explain everything very well. So I think I don't know if any one of you wants to finish this kickoff with some words. Me? Okay. So it was a pleasure to receive you here at Company Resiliers home, here at Evo Innovation Center. It will be a pleasure to see you all, inclusive who is at home or at the office because of this problem that we had earlier. You notice that we will have a lot of work in these next 7 years. We will count with everyone. We already at Company Resiliers started to see what is possible to do to accomplish what we plan and what is at the document. And in relation to Evo area, as José said, we will start the environmental education activities with the community, with the schools, and of course with the stakeholders. That will be very important here. So we will try to do the best, to have the best options to the Godwits, and try to that they have a party here too, as Joseph said. And maybe we can join, or some of you can join us again in a few weeks when this exhibition, where we are now in the Inclusion Center, is ready to be inaugurated. So if we have a white screen now in this room, but we hope that in some weeks this will be very different from now. So with the immersive exhibition about what happens here at the Tagus Estuary, including of course the Godwit, Flyway, and all that part and that information. So thank you very much for all to being here. If there is any other question, please contact us using the contacts that we share with you in the agenda. And thank you very much. We will finish the stream. Bye bye.